It took exactly 47 seconds for Stephen Miller to realize he had walked into a trap. Senator Elizabeth Warren sat across from him in the Senate Banking Committee hearing room, her reading glasses perched on her nose, a manila folder open in front of her. Inside that folder were bank records, stock transaction receipts, and timeline documents that would destroy the most powerful unelected official in Washington. Miller thought he was prepared. He had spent the morning in mock hearings with White House lawyers, rehearsing answers about policy coordination and ethics compliance. What he didn't know was that Warren had been building this case for 6 weeks, connecting dots that would expose not just one corrupt stock sale, but a systematic pattern of government officials enriching themselves while claiming to serve the American people. The hearing room was packed beyond capacity on this cold December morning in 2025. The Senate Banking Committee had called the session officially to investigate potential insider trading and market manipulation by Trump administration officials. But everyone knew the real target: Stephen Miller, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff, who had somehow managed to sell hundreds of thousands of dollars in stocks at precisely the moment those companies received massive government deals. Miller entered the chamber with his characteristic confidence, navy suit pressed, American flag pin gleaming under the harsh committee lights. Behind him sat a phalanx of White House lawyers, their briefcases bulging with prepared objections and executive privilege claims. To his left sat Katie Miller, his wife, also subpoenaed to testify about her own convenient stock transactions. Senator Elizabeth Warren had been waiting for this moment for years. As the ranking member of the Banking Committee, she had made her career exposing corruption in government and corporate America. She had taken down bank CEOs, pharmaceutical executives, and regulatory officials who thought they were untouchable. Now she had Stephen Miller in her crosshairs, and she wasn't going to miss. The first hour of the hearing proceeded predictably. Republican senators asked softball questions about the complexity of ethics rules and the challenges of divesting stock holdings while serving in government. Miller delivered practiced answers about consultation with ethics officials and proactive compliance measures. Senator Tim Scott asked whether Miller had acted in good faith when selling his stocks. Miller nodded earnestly, claiming he had followed every guideline provided by the Office of Government Ethics. Senator Cynthia Lummis wondered if perhaps the criticism was politically motivated, given Miller's high-profile role in the Trump administration. Miller agreed, suggesting that Democrats were trying to criminalize routine financial transactions because they couldn't defeat his policy agenda. But then Warren's turn arrived. The chamber seemed to tense as she adjusted her microphone, opened her manila folder with deliberate precision, and looked directly at Miller with the expression of a prosecutor who had just caught a witness in a lie. "Mr. Miller," she began, her Massachusetts accent sharp and clear, "let's talk about MP materials." Miller's confident expression flickered for just a moment, a micro-expression that the C-SPAN cameras captured in perfect high definition. MP Materials is a Las Vegas-based mining company that specializes in rare earth minerals. Warren continued. "You owned stock in that company while serving as White House Deputy Chief of Staff. Is that correct?" "Yes, Senator," Miller replied carefully, "as I disclosed in my financial filings." And in July 2025, the Trump administration announced what industry experts called an extraordinary series of measures to support MP Materials. The federal government agreed to purchase equity shares in the company and committed to buying its products. Is that correct? The administration announced a strategic minerals initiative. Yes. Warren leaned forward slightly. "Don't parse words with me, Mr. Miller. Did the federal government announce it would buy equity in MP Materials and purchase its products?" "Yes." "And what happened to MP Materials' stock price after that announcement?" Miller shifted in his seat. "I believe it increased." "It increased," Warren repeated slowly. "Mr. Miller, the stock price didn't just increase. It skyrocketed. It exploded. Investors who held shares before the announcement watched their portfolios multiply almost overnight. You were one of those investors, weren't you? Senator, I owned shares that I subsequently divested in accordance with ethics guidelines. Oh, you divested, Warren said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. Let's talk about when you divested. According to your financial disclosure forms, you sold between $50,000 and $100,000 worth of MP Materials stock in August 2025. 1 month after the government deal was announced. 1 month after the stock price skyrocketed. Is that correct? The timeline for divestment was coordinated with the Office of Government Ethics. That's not what I asked you, Mr. Miller. I asked you if it's correct that you sold your MP Materials stock in August, 1 month after the deal that made your stock more valuable was publicly announced. Miller paused for 3 full seconds, an eternity in congressional testimony. Yes, I sold in August, Warren pounced. So you held onto your stock long enough to benefit from the price increase caused by a government deal that you, as Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy, helped coordinate. Is that a fair characterization? No, Senator, I did not coordinate. Let me stop you right there, Warren interrupted, pulling a document from her folder. This is an internal White House email, dated April 15, 2025, 3 months before the public announcement. The subject line reads, Strategic Minerals Policy Coordination Meeting. Your name is on the distribution list. Were you at this meeting? Miller's lawyers whispered urgently to each other. One leaned forward to confer with Miller, but Warren cut them off. Mr. Miller, this is a simple yes or no question. Were you at the April 15th meeting about strategic minerals policy? I attend many policy meetings, Senator. I can't recall every specific. Let me refresh your memory, Warren said, pulling out another document. This is the meeting attendance log. It shows you were not only present, but you spoke for 17 minutes about the importance of securing rare earth mineral supplies. Do you recall the meeting now? The color was draining from Miller's face. I may have attended such a meeting. You may have attended, Warren repeated incredulously. Mr. Miller, you spoke for 17 minutes about a policy that would directly benefit a company you own stock in, and you may have attended that meeting. Senator, I participated in many policy discussions across a broad portfolio. That doesn't mean I personally benefited. Didn't personally benefit? Warren's voice rose sharply. You owned stock in MP Materials. You attended meetings in April about giving government support to rare earth mineral companies. The deal was announced in July. The stock price exploded. You sold in August, and you're telling this committee you didn't personally benefit. The sale was coordinated with ethics officials. Why did you wait until August to sell? Warren pressed. You became Deputy Chief of Staff in January 2025. That's 7 months you held onto stock in a company that was about to receive massive government support. Why didn't you sell in January, or February, or March? Miller looked to his lawyers, but they had no good answer. The ethics office provided guidance on an appropriate timeline. Warren pulled out yet another document. This is a memo from the Office of Government Ethics, dated February 2025. It explicitly recommends that you divest your holdings as expeditiously as possible to avoid significant appearance problems. They used those exact words. Significant appearance problems. Yet you waited 6 more months. Why? There were complex coordination issues. Complex coordination issues. Warren cut him off. Is that what we're calling it? When a White House official holds on to stock until after a government deal makes that stock more valuable, then sells at the peak? Because I have another word for it, Mr. Miller. Would you like to know what that word is? The hearing room was dead silent. Miller said nothing. The word is corruption, Warren said flatly. It's called insider trading. It's called using your government position for personal enrichment. Senator, I object to that characterization. Let's move on to Westinghouse, Warren continued, not giving him time to recover. You also owned stock in Cameco. Which owns Westinghouse? You sold that stock in August as well. And what happened 2 months later, in October? Miller's jaw tightened. He knew what was coming. In October, the Trump administration announced it had gained the option to take an 8% equity stake in Westinghouse. Another government deal, another company you own stock in, another perfectly timed sale. Isn't that an interesting coincidence, Mr. Miller? The Westinghouse transaction was unrelated to my personal holdings. Unrelated, Warren scoffed. You're the Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy. You oversee energy policy, nuclear policy, strategic infrastructure. And you're telling me you had no knowledge that the administration was planning to take an equity stake in a company you owned stock in. I was not directly involved in those negotiations. Warren leaned back in her chair, a predatory smile crossing her face. Not directly involved. That's an interesting phrase. Let me ask you directly, Mr. Miller. When did you first learn that the Trump administration was considering taking an equity stake in Westinghouse? Miller hesitated. This was the question his lawyers had warned him about, the one that could expose him to perjury charges if he answered incorrectly. I don't recall a specific date. You don't recall, Warren said slowly. Let me help you recall. Did you learn about the Westinghouse deal before or after you sold your Cameco stock in August? The trap was sprung. If Miller admitted he knew about the deal before selling, he was confessing to insider trading. If he claimed he didn't know until after selling, Warren could produce documents proving he was lying. Senator, these transactions occurred over many months involving multiple policy discussions. Before or after, Mr. Miller? It's a simple question. Miller's hands gripped the edge of the witness table. Behind him, his lawyers were frantically passing notes. The White House communications team, watching on monitors back at the West Wing, were already drafting crisis response statements. I may have been aware of preliminary discussions. Preliminary discussions, Warren pounced. So you were aware before you sold the stock. You knew the government was planning a deal that would benefit Westinghouse, and you sold your stock at exactly the right moment to maximize your profit. Is that correct? That's not. The sale timeline was determined by ethics guidance. Show me the ethics guidance that says it's okay to profit from insider knowledge, Warren snapped. Show me the rule that says White House officials can hold on to stocks until government deals are announced, then sell at the peak. Because I've read the ethics rules, Mr. Miller, and I can't find that exemption anywhere. She pulled out another stack of documents. Let's talk about the full scope of your trading activity. In August alone, you sold shares in MP Materials, Cameco, GE Aerospace, Palantir Technologies, Amazon, and Intel. Every single one of those companies either received government contracts, favorable regulatory treatment, or direct government investment during the Trump administration. Every single one. Miller tried to interrupt, but Warren rolled over him. Intel particularly interests me. The Trump administration took an equity stake in Intel as part of its semiconductor manufacturing policy, a policy you helped shape. And what do you know? You sold your Intel stock right before that deal was announced. How did you get so lucky, Mr. Miller? Those were diversified holdings that I divested as part of... And then there's your wife, Warren said, her voice dropping to a dangerous quiet. Katie Miller also owned MP Materials stock, between $15,000 and $50,000 worth. She sold at the same time you did. Did you two coordinate your stock sales? For the first time, Miller looked genuinely rattled. Bringing his wife into the questioning crossed a line he hadn't expected. My wife's financial decisions are separate from mine. Are they? Warren asked. Because the timing is awfully convenient. You both owned stock in the same company. That company got a massive government deal. You both sold at the same time. And you're telling me you didn't discuss it? You didn't coordinate? You both just happened to sell at the exact perfect moment by coincidence? We consult with ethics officials independently. Warren shook her head in disgust. Mr. Miller, I've been in the Senate for over a decade. I've investigated corrupt banks, pharmaceutical price gouging, and corporate fraud. But I've never seen anything quite like this. A government official so brazenly using his position to enrich himself and his family while claiming to serve the American people. She looked directly at him, her voice carrying the weight of moral authority. You spent years attacking government corruption. You railed against the deep state. You accused career officials of putting their own interests ahead of the country. And now, we find out you were doing exactly what you accused others of doing, using insider knowledge to line your pockets. Miller's face had gone from pale to flushed red. Senator, I resent the implication. I don't care what you resent, Warren cut him off. I care about the American people who watched you profit from government deals while they struggled to pay their bills. I care about the investors who didn't have inside information, who lost money while you made money. I care about restoring trust in government, which people like you have destroyed. She gathered her documents, preparing for her final blow. I'm referring your conduct to the Department of Justice for investigation into potential securities fraud and insider trading. I'm also requesting that the Office of Government Ethics conduct a comprehensive review of every financial transaction you and your wife made while you've been in government service. Miller's lawyers were now visibly panicking, whispering urgently to him. But Warren wasn't finished. And I want you to know something, Mr. Miller. You came into this hearing thinking you could talk your way out of this with careful lawyering and semantic games. You thought you could hide behind ethics office consultations and timeline guidance. But you made one critical mistake. She held up a thick folder. You underestimated how thoroughly we would investigate. Every stock trade, every government deal, every meeting you attended, every email you sent. We have it all, Mr. Miller, and we're going to make sure the American people see exactly what you've done. The hearing room erupted in chaos. Reporters rushed to file their stories. Democratic senators issued statements calling for Miller's resignation. Republican senators tried to defend the complexity of ethics rules, but looked deeply uncomfortable doing so. Miller stood to leave, but Warren's voice stopped him. One more question, Mr. Miller. He turned back reluctantly. You've spent your career claiming to fight for ordinary Americans against corrupt elites. How much money did you personally make from these stock sales? Miller stood frozen. His lawyers shook their heads, signaling him not to answer. But the silence spoke louder than any response could have. That's what I thought, Warren said quietly. No further questions? As Miller was escorted from the hearing room by his security detail, the cameras captured every moment of his humiliation. The man who had built his career, attacking government corruption, had been exposed as exactly the kind of insider he claimed to despise. Someone who used public service as an opportunity for private profit. Within hours, the Miller stock scandal was trending globally. Cable news played the confrontation on loop. Ethics experts called it one of the most damning congressional testimonies in modern history. And Elizabeth Warren became a hero to millions who had been waiting for someone to finally hold the Trump administration accountable for its corruption. The $100,000 Miller had pocketed from his perfectly timed stock sales would haunt him forever. But the real cost was something far greater. His credibility, his reputation, and any remaining claim to moral authority. In 47 seconds, Elizabeth Warren had destroyed it all